Hello and welcome to well, potentially not the most recent one of these little videos. This one is going to be on a run design. Uh, I ran this on the hub several months ago by this point. It is a more making connections and socially oriented run. Uh, the main goal that I had when I put it forth was so that I could have a run where there are a lot of criminal elements involved where the different players in their different roles had the opportunity to make new connections and contacts, all wrapped up in the trappings of I believe it was actually a Halloween party, costume party that I had used as my backdrop. The, the contact, not the con, sorry, the Johnson that I used was a recurring Johnson that I use occasionally. He's a bit of a sleazeball and uses people, not necessarily like directly manipulates them, but is very much a I'll owe you a favor to pay off somebody else's favor that he owes kind of guy. His name is Larry Four Fingers. He may or may not show up as one of my runs on my channel and in other places, but that is who I'm talking about. He had a very petty motive into getting the runners to do this, but I will talk about that at the end and some of the other reasonings and things that you can have here. First, starting off, your Johnson could be a number of people. Anyone really in the Underworld Syndicate type places can be interested in getting into this gathering. Uh, it could start off as one of your character's personal contacts. It could be a new person coming to them as a either a newcomer to the shadows or somebody from outside the shadows that is trying to get information from inside the shadows. The one suggestion I have listed on here is a like illegitimate law enforcement personnel who uh, may not have the shadows slash underworld community's best interest at mind in the way that that can go interestingly. Um, so to as your J pitches it in their meet to the runners, it is a fairly simple job, or at least that's what they always believe. They want to get into this gathering of higher ups in different criminal organizations. There'll be some bigger gang people there. There'll be some Yakuza, Mafia, Bori, etc. people there. There will be some big shadow players, black market arms dealers, drug lords, that kind of thing. Not like crazy huge people, but definitely people in the 3 to 5, 4 to 6 connection rating, depending upon um, your game's power level. There are a couple of things. The invite to this is I used a data chip with certain bits of data on it as your invite. Made it really easily copied and stuff, but in this world we have a economy of favors, and how are you going to get that favor? There's a lot of ways I could go about it. Remember, we're dealing with criminals here, both as the players and the people that they're going to be interacting with. So it is easily conceivable that your people are going to go through their various legwork options here. The Matrix people, you could find a person who you think is going that is connected with a criminal syndicate or something along those lines and hack their comlink and get the information that way. You can go through the location that the gathering is going to be held at. I use the hotel in my runs, so your runners have the option of getting into the hotel, making some reservations so that they're on site, stealing or copying some um, uniforms to make disguises, that kind of thing. They're not won't necessarily be in the party, but you can still move about the gathering as a attendant or not necessarily maintenance, but a bellhop. You carry around a tray of drinks all day, and you get to meet and interact with all kinds of interesting people. There's a lot of room for a subtext to be thrown on this or a sub-objective other than just getting into the party, which will be some more of the stuff that I talk to down below. On the social side of things for your legwork, this is a primarily social run. Typically, your physical combative people or your matrix or even your magical people will have a large spotlight situation in most of your runs. It'll be the kind of things like, oh, well, combat broke out. Let's Let's get Steve, the murder hobo street samurai, in here to clean all this up. Or just about every run, the Matrix people are going to have about 45 minutes to an hour or so of just host diving, which we can talk about in other videos about how to spread that about. This one is a more social. We're going to want them interacting with all of these people. There's a large opportunity for some role play to really come through and shape the different types of uh, relationships your players will have with these different characters that they are meeting. Stuff like when I did it on the hub, one of the characters called up and got in touch through a second party to a person that was going to be at the party, and through some really nice role play, he struck it off really well with this guy who was a very laid back, lackadaisical guy. So he just gave them the information to make a copy of his invite with the promise that when you're there, you're going to have to buy me a drink. And later on at the party, that character met up with that NPC, bought them the drink, and it really kind of kicked off their relationship because then they got to talking about various things, and that is how that player ended up with his new black market arms dealer with, a little bit of a bump to his loyalty because, he's a real chummy guy. But your social legwork here can maybe they have fairly connected organized crime folks that they could be like, hey, I heard about this party. I would be interested in going. Maybe they have a contact that owes them a favor. Maybe the contact knows somebody who's going that he probably doesn't want going. So he could arrange them to have bad things happen to him. Stuff like that. The the physical recon is always a great thing. It's a good way to get descriptions of outfits for disguises, locations of other things. You could even so much as have them, you see a bunch of the people leaving the hotel, which is what I used. They're going down the street to go to a different bar. You could come in there and meet up with them after work, interface with them that way, and maybe those people have some information that you could use, either hack it off of their comlink or socially extract it from them to be able to create one of these invites, because it'll have the opposite side of the information of what they should be looking for to let people into the big ballroom or whatever. Uh, Astral security is going to be pretty standard. There's not a lot of legwork type stuff unless you want to mix in uh, a subplot to the overall run. Maybe your contact doesn't want somebody showing up, has a picture of them. You can now use your astral recon to do like a search power to find them, to incapacitate them in some way, send a spirit after them, otherwise occupy them, something along those lines. It's a one of those things where magicians and magic get a fairly good amount of spotlight, so we're going to kind of try and pushing things off to the side. Uh, for the party or the gathering itself, it is like the main focus of the run to get people in and get them into doing a bunch of different RP interactions with a wide variety of cast members. You may want to pre-generate a couple of people that are going to be here. Dependent upon your table, I could recommend talking them out of character for a little bit, see what kind of people their characters are interested in meeting, and then manufacture people that are going to be at this party and reasons that they are going to be there. Hopefully, you can get your entire team to go into the actual party. Deckers and riggers have a bad habit of wanting to sit in vans and not be fun. However, this could be an opportunity. Let's say you have a male Johnson and a female Decker, and normally she sits in the van, in this situation, it's like, I'm gonna need you to be my date for whatever contrived reason. Maybe the contact actually genuinely likes the player. Maybe it's that player's contact that brought up this idea to them, and since they know them better, feels more comfortable dragging them in, kicking and screaming to this social engagement. Once you're inside, though, when I did it, I had the Johnson throughout the night would get drunker, and he would be handed off from player to player to kind of babysit while they look into various other things that are going on. The one who got the invite information He didn't care so much about babysitting this guy all night. He wanted to find the man that he called up, wanted to buy him that drink and make that connection for his own personal benefit. So he's in there going around, finds the guy that kind of reminds him of it, buys him a drink, they have that interaction, and then a couple of minutes later, you have uh, your other person who currently has the Johnson kind of brings him by as like, I got to go to the bathroom, watch him for a minute, make sure nothing happens. Dump this sprawling drunk mess upon him while your other character goes off to do whatever it is they're going to do. Um, you want everybody to have a large role play potential here. Even your antisocial street Sams with their like two charisma uncouth, there's going to be a group of bodyguards that are hanging out here that are going to be kind of the same way. They're going to be the street toughs that this is kind of a neutral ground place, so they don't actually need to break anybody's heads in, but they're going to be standing off in a corner, quietly sipping, standing near each other. Yep, yep. Just kind of gives uh your cyber zombie street Sam a place where he can interact on an equal social level of the people around him. Your face has a large opportunity to meet with all kinds of people. And with with it being such a large meeting as it is, there's all kinds of opportunities for personal agendas to come into play. When I ran it, there was a character who was a cop, was thought dead, so was their sin was flagged as deceased, aka doesn't actually have a sin, but is trying to find out why their team was betrayed. So obviously, on a gathering of criminally oriented people, you're going to have some corrupt cops. So as they were walking around, there was some perception tests made and that kind of thing, and they saw somebody that they recognized from their days at the academy was a detective now in the force when they left. But they were babysitting the Johnson at that time when they noticed him, so they had to find another one of the players, dump him off to them, and then come back and basically spy on him and collect some evidence to turn over to their one uh, knight errant contact friend that they still had to facilitate their own little backstory slash pseudo agenda. Um, if there are people that your players have run into in a negative light, they could totally be here. It's like, oh crap, that guy from the Yakuza that we stole stuff from on our last run like 2 weeks ago, he's right over there. And then all of a sudden, that's a different social dynamic. Now they're trying to avoid that guy, who maybe that guy is there to actually meet your Johnson, or just happens to saunter up to the bar when your other player is there having ordering some drinks and that kind of thing. Um, I threw together a quick list of potential criminally oriented people that could be here. This is by no means a extensive list or the only list. Throw whoever you want in there. People from past runs, people from future runs. This could be a good way to seed an introduction to an NPC that they may not show up as a character, or I'm sorry, not as a character, as a contact, but later on, maybe not the next run, maybe the run after that, or something along those lines of, don't I know you from somewhere? You were at that party, all right. And then kind of throws a little bit of a callback or an interest along those lines to how things go. Um, However, there is always the people that prefer to live in their vans. And as the goal of this run is social interaction, there's a couple of different ways that you can pull that off depending upon how your van jockey likes to ride. I in my run, uh, he stayed in the van. He went to a parking garage and was preparing to do some hacking things. So the limo drivers from the various people parked up in the same parking garage because it was the closest one. Why wouldn't they? It then became as like, all right, what do you want to do? And he kind of like did some little hacking to their complex. Didn't really find anything because they are limo drivers. I cut away from him to come back to the party inside. When I popped back out to him, the limo drivers had broken out like a trade projector or whatever passes for like a radio with nice speakers, and they threw down some cardboard and were having like an 80s style dance slash break dance, just gathering with a bunch of other limo drivers. Because what are you going to do? You're on the clock to wait to pick up these fancy people for the next couple of hours. You can't really go anywhere, so you might as well hang out with your compatriots in an attempt to pull that decker out of the van to interact here. Um, the Later on, when he still hadn't come out, they had ordered some delivery food, and that came up. Now all of a sudden, you've got limo drivers and food delivery people, and your guy just sitting in the van. There's a little bit of a trust in your players that, like, look, come on, I'm trying to do something here to pull them out of their comfort zone of being in that van. Um, but this is also a place where a subplot can come in. In the version that I did, there was going to be as it was a Halloween party, there was going to be a costume contest with everybody being able to vote and the votes being tabulated by the host. So what he did was he hacked into the host with the intention of making sure that their Johnson won, or at the very least, the person of the Johnson's ire lost. So while he was in there waiting the last couple of minutes before the votes are actually tabulated, another persona logs in. All of a sudden, not all of a sudden really, but that persona then begins to manipulate some data and stuff, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, 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 you're messing with the thing that I was going to mess with. What's going on here? However, the NPC screwed up and alerted the host. So all of a sudden, ice is spawning. A couple of turns in, maybe a spider will come in. So now you have a opportunity for that Van Decker to have an interaction with another matrixly oriented person in a realm that they feel comfortable. They may not like the idea of going outside of their van to interact with people because they have like a low body stat, or maybe they have the paraplegic quality, something along those lines, where physical interactions isn't something they're into. But in the Matrix, they are strong in the Matrix. They have their deck or their living persona. They have all these programs, and they have huge logic dice pools and hacking dice pools. Here they can do things. They are strong. And from there, it really depends upon how that situation goes. Maybe the first NPC gets helped out by your PC. Okay, then they have one of the things you can get off of Matrix Perception is a com code number. So now you have the com code to this person that was just in there hacking the same system you were hacking. There can be all kinds of interesting things that come up from that down the line. Maybe they weren't. Maybe you didn't help them and you decided instead to stop them because you wanted to mess with things. The security spider was in there. Security spider saw what went down, maybe, and then has a hey man, thanks for helping me out. I appreciate it. Should you ever need anything, let them know that way. Gives them another option for some way to get additional interaction without forcing them out of their comfort zone, which hopefully we can get them to do more often. I personally am not a big fan. It's not my natural habitat. Sometimes a milk run is just a milk run. That is what makes people paranoid about milk runs. Is most of the time they're not, but every once in a while there is, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The idea here is to facilitate the social aspect of Shadowrun, which is something that is a little bit more important than it is in many other games. Like, your contacts are really a strong way to help you get what you need done. A couple of complications that I came up with real quick is if you have a law enforcement personnel as the Johnson. Well, he's not exactly the kind of person, if he's that one straight cop in a dirty city, he's could get in some trouble because there's going to be a lot of people here that maybe recognize him or find out later on that somebody here spilled the guts, and then they begin kind of tracking them down. If the runners are associated with him, they're seeing around the party with this guy, maybe that could hurt their street cred or something along those lines. With having one of the players' contacts as the Johnson who wants to be at this party, it gives you a good opportunity for a bunch of pulling up of their previous runs that they may have used this contact on, or laying groundwork for future runs, or just filling in more backstory of the contact. Remember, your contact isn't numbers; they're an actual person and have their own wants and projects and things that they are working on. And maybe they ran afoul of somebody else in here. Maybe one of the subplots is I'm in competition with this guy who is trying to compete to move up in the supply chain. I don't want Steve over there to uh, win over the big mafia dons opening that he has in his organization. So I need you guys to not do anything overtly because this is supposed to be a neutral ground situation. But if you could find a way to make him look bad at this gathering, or keep him occupied so that I can talk to the Don first, or embarrass him, something along those lines to tweak the social situation into your contact's favor. It's a It'll depend upon your table, and I want to know how you guys ended up doing it because there's a lot of different ways that this can go. The the usage of an existing contact will be a good way to actually increase the connection and the loyalty of said contact, which is usually something that is pretty hard to do outside of very specific plot oriented circumstances. This doesn't have to be a big part of your plot in your overarching campaign. It can be a simple sidebar of, hey, I know that this could be, you guys have been doing a lot of work with your, let's call it a gang lieutenant uh, contact, and you want to show that mechanically. So bringing that gang lieutenant uh, as a date or a partner or whatever to this party can result in that lieutenant meeting a new supplier. Maybe there's a arms dealer there that he cuts a deal with for his gang to get some goods at certain prices, and then all of a sudden, while the gang standing may not have changed, they're significantly better equipped and are able to get things that they need to take care of their turf. So that it manifests as a mechanical bump to their loyalty. Sorry, not their loyalty, their connection. The uh, Ideally, everybody can come out of this with a new friend that they have made, somebody who is going to fill in some role that they didn't have previously. When I did it as a run, um, the XKE cop had gained a connection bump to her contact because they were like, here's a bunch of dirt on this filthy cop. And that guy got a promotion out of it. The one guy got his arms dealer contact because he had made contact with him before him. He went and he bought him that drink, and they had a bunch of role play there. The Van Decker got a new matrixly oriented contact. I believe it was actually a technomancer, and they started to um, talk technomancer things. The other contact, who was more of a social person, ended up they met one of those bathroom attendants that fancy places has, that instead of dealing in things like scented soaps and such, dealt in drugs. So you're at this party, and you go into the bathroom, you take care of your things, and you come out, and there's a person there offering you some Bliss or Zen or Nova Coke, just as like, can I get you anything? Because that's the kind of place it was. Um, but that kind of brings us to the end here. It's The idea is making friends and influencing people and growing influence that you may have as a character already. Fill in those extra holes. Maybe your street samurai meets a new street doc because he sees that, the street doc comes up to him seeing that he's got a bunch of cyberware in him. Maybe it's some used stuff. Maybe, big bulky used cyber arms is like, I can take care of you for that. Your talismonger meets a person of an interesting or exotic tradition there. Sorry, not your talisman. Your mage meets a talismonger of a interesting or exotic tradition there, so that they have options to expand their cultural influences. Deckers can meet other deckers, people access the hardware and that kind of stuff. And maybe a technomancer accidentally runs into one of their own by, if he has the skin link echo, just branching by, not branching, I'm sorry, brushing by each other, or maybe somebody picks that character, it's like, let me dance, and then takes their hand, and then since the NPC techno has the skin link, gets that direct connection to the Technomancer's living persona. Then they have a conversation digitally through their direct connection to each other out on the dance floor as they are dancing around. Lots of interesting role play opportunities there, which is something that sometimes people get lost in. They concentrate on the 2L version of role play rather than the E version of it role play. That being said, I would love to hear how this run goes for you guys down in the comments section. If you guys have any questions or actual comments, I would love to hear that as well. I have some contact information down there. I'm on Twitter at GM_Bamps, BAMCE, or GMBamps@gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, concerns, I want to know how I can make these kinds of videos better for you guys. So thank you, and have a good day.